One ordinary morning in Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traoré decided to experience the reality of his people firsthand. Wearing simple clothes, a white shirt, brown pants, and a cap partially covering his face, he blended into the market. Proud. No one recognized him, not the meat vendors, not the fruit sellers, not even the young men carrying onions. "I need to see with my own eyes," he had explained to his wife. "I want to feel what the disadvantaged feel, hear what they say when they don't know I'm listening." His wife, with a worried expression, simply asked, "Be careful. You're a good man, but good men have many enemies." Ibrahim smiled, kissed her forehead, and promised to return before sunset. As he walked through the market accompanied by two discreet security guards, nobody paid him any attention until he heard a child's voice coming from an old radio attached to a wooden stick. "Breaking news, danger in the palace. Conspirators planning to assassinate President Traoré tonight." Ibrahim stopped suddenly. The voice belonged to a boy of approximately 12 years, wearing torn shorts and a dirty t-shirt. His radio, patched, together with adhesive tape and exposed wires, emitted distorted sounds, but it worked. The boy, standing on a metal box, announced like a real reporter. "Enemies inside the government itself," the boy continued. "They're planning to attack the president during a secret meeting. I repeat, there is a plot to kill the president tonight." Some people laughed. Others tossed coins into a plastic cup in front of him. Most believed it was just a poor boy playing journalist. But Ibrahim's heart froze. Approaching discreetly, he asked, "Hey, where did you hear that news?" The boy stared at him confused. "Who wants to know?" "I just like news," Ibrahim replied calmly. "I've never heard anything like that before. Is it a joke?" The boy stepped down from the box, now serious. "It's not a joke, sir. I heard it last night on my shortwave radio. Some men were talking in code, but I listened carefully. They said, 'Tonight is the night,' and mentioned the president's name, I swear." Looking around, the boy leaned closer. "I recorded it. Want to hear?" Ibrahim nodded, feeling his hands grow cold. The boy pulled out an old recorder, scratched and dusty, but functional. He pressed the button. Through static, muffled voices were audible. "He must be gone before morning. Tonight when he meets with the council. We have people inside. The guards will be ours." Ibrahim's heart sank upon recognizing one of the voices, someone from his own cabinet, who had stood beside him just the day before. "Do you know who these people are?" he asked the boy. "No, sir, but I know where the signal came from. I traced the frequency. I've been playing with radio since I was 7. My father was a soldier. He died when I was little. I live on the streets now, but radios are my world." Ibrahim felt dizzy. The ground seemed to shift beneath his feet. He had come seeking truth with his own eyes and now heard it with his own ears. This boy, this poor street boy, had just saved his life. "I need you to come with me," said Ibrahim. "Why?" asked the boy, suspicious. "Because I believe you," Ibrahim replied slowly, removing his cap. The boy's eyes widened. "It's me," confirmed Ibrahim. "But keep your voice down." "You're the president." "Shh," Ibrahim whispered. "Not here, not now." The boy stepped back, trembling. "I'm sorry if I—" "You've done nothing wrong," assured Ibrahim, placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. "You may have saved my life." The guards, now on alert, whispered, "Sir, we must leave immediately. If this recording is genuine, we don't have much time." Ibrahim agreed. "Let's go back, but bring the boy. He comes with me." The boy, shocked, protested, "I can't go to the palace. I sleep in an abandoned bus near the train station." "Not anymore," Ibrahim stated firmly. "Tonight you ride with the president." As they disappeared down the alley, the crowd returned to their activities. The boy's speaker still repeated, "This is not a joke. The president is in danger." But no one was listening anymore, except the enemies. Somewhere in that crowd, a man pulled out a phone and made a silent call. It's him. He knows the race against time. The presidential convoy moved like a silent storm through the streets of Ouagadougou. This time, without flashing lights, without sirens, just a single black SUV speeding through back roads. avoiding traffic and curious eyes. Inside the vehicle, President Ibrahim Traoré sat next to the street boy who had just shaken his entire world. The boy, tense, held the broken recorder as if it were gold. He couldn't stop admiring the leather seats, the air conditioning, the shiny dashboard. "Is this real?" he whispered. Ibrahim turned to him with a smile. "It's real, son. You're sitting next to the man they're trying to kill." The boy blinked. "So what now? Are you going to arrest them?" "Not yet," replied Ibrahim. "If we act too early, they'll escape. We need to catch them during tonight's meeting." "What meeting?" "A private meeting of the Presidential Council. Only ministers and high-ranking security officials are allowed. That's when they plan to strike." The guards remained silent, but their faces showed tension. They too had heard the voices on the recording. "Sir, we need a plan," one finally spoke. "They won't try anything unless they're sure of your attendance at the meeting." "I have to attend," stated Ibrahim. "If I don't show up, they'll know we're alerted. But this time, we'll be prepared." Turning to the boy, he asked, "What's your name?" "Ismael," the boy answered. "Well, Ismael," said the president, "tonight you're part of a secret mission. You helped us uncover a deadly plot, and for that I owe you my life." Ismael didn't know what to say. He had never been part of anything important, never even had dinner with a real family, and now here he was, sitting with the most powerful man in the country, helping him plan a shadow battle. "May I ask something?" the boy requested softly. "Of course," replied Ibrahim. "Why do they want to kill you?" The president looked out the window for a long moment before answering. "Because I stood up for the poor," he said. "Because I ended dirty deals with foreign companies. Because I stopped some powerful men from stealing our country. And when a leader becomes a problem, they want to eliminate him." Ismael lowered his head. He knew poverty well, had lived in it. No home, no school, no help. Just the street, the dust, and a radio that had become his only friend. "You're not like the others," he commented quietly. "No," Ibrahim agreed. "But not everyone appreciates change." In the palisades, they entered the presidential gates. The guards quickly inspected the area. Everything seemed calm. Too calm. Inside the mansion, Ibrahim rushed to his private office with Ismael and the two trusted guards. He called his intelligence chief, a sharp man named Commander Coup, one of the few people he still trusted. Coup listened to the recording with an impassive expression. When it ended, he looked at the president and said just 2 words. "It's genuine?" "Do you recognize the voices?" asked Ibrahim. Coup nodded. "Minister of Defense, possibly the Chief of Internal Security, and another voice I can't identify." The president's heart sank. These were men who had sworn to protect the nation, men whose hands he had shaken, dined with. "I want them watched," ordered Ibrahim. "But don't make any moves yet. Let them attend tonight's meeting as if nothing happened." Coup agreed again. "And the boy?" Ismael stood awkwardly beside the bookshelf, still holding the radio. Ibrahim approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "He stays here. Feed him. Give him a bed. He's done more for this country tonight than most politicians have in their entire lives." The boy smiled. It was a small, nervous smile, but full of pride. As night fell over the city, Ibrahim prepared for the most dangerous meeting of his life. He wore a hidden bulletproof vest, his guards carried silent weapons, and Coup positioned undercover men around the presidential building. Even with all that, one question burned in everyone's mind. How many traitors were still inside? At 10:45 p.m., the council room lights were turned on, chairs arranged, tea served. Nothing seemed out of place. At 11 p.m., the councilors began to arrive. They smiled, laughed, shook hands as if nothing were wrong. But among them were those planning murder. At 11:10 p.m., President Ibrahim entered the room. Everyone stood. They saluted him, smiled, but his eyes scanned the room like a hawk. He recognized the voice from the tape. The Minister of Defense sat calmly at the far end of the table, sipping tea. The man who had once called him brother had now, Ibrahim knew, said on tape, he must be gone before morning. But just as the meeting began, a hidden earpiece in Ibrahim's ear crackled. "Sir," whispered Siku's voice, "we have a problem. There's a suspicious signal coming from inside the room." "What kind of signal?" Ibrahim whispered back. "Someone is transmitting audio live. Someone is sending this meeting's conversation to an unknown location. There's a spy in the room." Ibrahim froze. It wasn't just a plan to kill him, it was already happening, and he had just walked into the lion's den. The trap president Ibrahim remained motionless at the council table. His heart beat like a drum, sweat beginning to form on his forehead. He had just heard a whisper through his earpiece. "Sir, someone in this room is transmitting your voice. They're sending everything to someone outside. There's a spy among you." He looked around slowly. 12 men seated, all in fine clothes, all smiling, all acting as if everything were normal. But one of them was secretly a traitor. Ibrahim had no time to waste. He cleared his throat and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "Brothers, thank you for joining me tonight," he said, forcing a smile. "Let's begin." As they discussed matters of security and budget, Ibrahim's mind was elsewhere. His ears listened to the voices. His eyes studied every small movement. Who was it? The man scratching his neck too often? The one constantly checking? His watch? Or the one who hadn't touched his tea? Suddenly, Siku's voice returned to his earpiece. "Sir, we've traced the signal. It's coming from inside the jacket of one of the ministers. The spy is wearing a hidden microphone." "Which one?" Ibrahim whispered. "We're still tracking, but it's someone to your left." Ibrahim turned his head slightly. To his left were 3. The Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Defense, and the Deputy Minister of Security. 3 powerful men. 3 potential traitors. But then something happened. The Minister of Defense, the same man whose voice had been heard on the tape, accidentally knocked over his cup of tea. As he leaned forward to clean it, the tablecloth lifted slightly, and Ibrahim saw something blinking red inside his jacket. It was tiny, like a dot of light, but enough. It was the transmitter. Ibrahim calmly pressed a button on the pen in his pocket. It was the signal. Outside, Commander Siku and his men received the message. "Go," he told his team. "Operation Blackout begins now." In seconds, all power in the palace went out. Darkness. The entire room pitched black. There was a collective gasp. Chairs scraped the floor. Some men shouted in confusion. Then, crash. A window shattered. Smoke filled the room. Guards burst in, wearing night vision goggles. They moved quickly, grabbing the ministers one by one before they could react. In 30 seconds, the lights returned, and there he was, on the floor, the Minister of Defense pinned down by 2 guards. The small transmitter was found in the inside pocket of his jacket. He was caught. Everyone stared in horror. "What is this?" shouted the deputy minister, pretending to be shocked. Ibrahim stood slowly, his voice now cold and clear. "I gave all of you my trust, but someone here chose betrayal." The Minister of Defense, now sweating and breathing heavily, screamed, "I was forced. They threatened my family. Please, Mr. President, I had no choice." Ibrahim looked him in the eyes. "You had a choice. You chose power over honor." The guards dragged the man out of the room. But when everyone thought it was over, another voice shouted from outside, "Sir, one of the guards has fled. He escaped through the back door." Ibrahim's heart sank. There were more traitors, and worse, someone had helped them from inside. He looked around the room again. He could feel it now. Fear, guilt, silence. He turned to Siku. "Search every staff member, every guard, every cleaner, every cook. Someone is still helping them." Siku nodded. "Yes, sir." But as they left the room, Ibrahim suddenly stopped. He had forgotten something. Ismail, the boy with the radio. He had left him in the mansion's guest room, safe, or so he thought. Now, his heart raced. What if the escaped guard was going after the boy? What if someone wanted to silence him before he could speak again? "Take me to Ismail now!" Ibrahim shouted. He ran down the hallway with 4 armed guards behind him. His shoes echoed loudly in the marble halls. He reached the guest wing. The door to the boys' room was wide open and the room empty. No Ismail, no recorder, just an open window and a small spot of blood on the floor. The president's heart dropped. He stared at the blood on the floor, paralyzed. His guards stormed the room, shouting orders, checking every corner, looking under the bed, the table, behind the curtains. But it was too late. Ismail was gone. "Find him," roared Ibrahim. "Seal every exit. Search the entire palace." "Yes, sir," the guards responded, scattering like ants. Coup arrived a minute later, panting from running. He saw the blood and clenched. His jaw. "Sir, this was planned." Ibrahim felt completely cold. "You think someone took him?" "Yes," said Coup. "He was the key. The boy had proof. His radio, his tape. That makes him a target." Ibrahim looked out the open window. It faced the garden wall. "Whoever took the boy, we didn't go through the doors." "They climbed out," whispered the president. "Probably used the tree near the kitchen window. That wall is only 6 feet high," Coup agreed. "I'll check the camera footage." "No," said Ibrahim. "Don't waste time. The cameras were probably disabled. Go to the radio tower. See if anyone picked up strange transmissions in the last hour." "I'm on it." As Coup ran off, Ibrahim clenched his fists. They were moving faster now. Someone inside the palace had helped the traitors. But worse still, they had taken a child, a poor boy who risked everything to help his country, and now was missing, maybe dead. Ibrahim refused to believe that. "He's alive," he told himself. "He has to be." Suddenly, a low-ranking palace guard came running, his face pale. "Mr. President, I saw something before the blackout." A man in a servant's uniform entered the guest wing. He didn't look familiar. "I thought maybe he was new staff." Ibrahim's eyes narrowed. What did he look like? Short, heavy-set, scar on his left cheek, limped when he walked. The president froze. That description was familiar. "He's not staff," said Ibrahim. "He's a former soldier. A man we fired last year for espionage." "You mean Captain Caleb?" asked the guard. "Yes," said Ibrahim. "And if Caleb is involved, this is bigger than we thought." He turned to the head of his guard. "Lock down the entire palace, no one gets in or out. And double the security on my wife and children." "Yes, sir." But even as orders were shouted and soldiers spread throughout the property, Ibrahim's mind was elsewhere. Back to the broken radio, back to the boy's serious face. Back to the moment when the boy had said, "They're planning something for tonight." And now he was gone. The rescue, meanwhile, somewhere in the dark outskirts of the city, a van bounced along a rough dirt road. Inside, Ismail sat tied to a chair, mouth covered with duct tape, eyes wide with fear. Across from him sat a man with a sharp smile and a scar on his cheek. "Captain Caleb." "Well, well," said Caleb, lighting a cigarette. "You caused a lot of problems for powerful people, boy." Ismail tried to shout to warn someone, but the tape kept him silent. "You shouldn't have played with radios," Caleb said coldly. "That mouth of yours is going to get you killed." The other man driving the van laughed. "He's just a kid. Let's finish him and dump the body in the river." But Caleb shook his head. "No. The boss said to wait. He wants to hear what the boy recorded. And if it's dangerous, we hand him over. To the foreigners. Let them deal with him." The van left the road and entered an old warehouse. The doors closed behind them. Ismail looked around. Dust, rats, crates, darkness. Was this it? His heart beat faster. Would this be where he died? Then something strange happened. Caleb took Ismail's recorder. He pressed a button, but nothing played. It was blank. No voices, no tape, no recording. "What?" said Caleb. "Where's the audio?" "What?" asked the driver. Caleb grabbed the boy by the collar. "What did you do? Where's the recording?" Ismail just stared at him with fire in his eyes. Caleb ripped the tape from the boy's mouth. "I hid it," whispered Ismail. Caleb punched him in the face. Blood flew from the boy's lip. "Where?" Ismail spat blood on the ground. "You'll never find it," Caleb growled and raised his hand again, but then his phone rang. He answered. "Yes?" A voice on the other end said, "Change of plans, the president is closing in. Take the boy to the air, the jet leaves in 30 minutes. He must disappear." Caleb nodded and ended the call. "You're lucky, rat," he muttered. "You're going on a long trip. After that, who knows?" He pushed the boy back into the van. Ismail's hands were bleeding, his face hurt, but inside he was smiling. Because they were wrong. He had hidden the recording, but not in the palace, not in his clothes, not even in the radio. He had hidden it somewhere no one would ever think to look, in the broken speaker on his street corner, back where it all began, and someone had just found it. Back at the palace, a young janitor, only 18 years old, was cleaning the market speaker that Ismail had used earlier that day. He noticed something unusual. The back was sealed with tape. Curious, he peeled it open. Inside was a small hidden memory card. He turned to the security officer nearby. "Sir, I think this belongs to the president." In the palace command center, Commander Coup rushed in, holding the small memory card. "Sir," he shouted, "we've recovered." "The boy's recording." President Ibrahim turned from the balcony where he had been staring into the darkness. His face lit up with shock and hope. "Where did you find it?" "A janitor," said Coup, breathless. "He found it hidden inside the broken speaker that Ismail uses to announce the news." Ibrahim's hands trembled as he took the card and connected it. And then the truth came alive. Clear audio played out. "He must be gone before morning. The guards are ours. The boy, he knows nothing. Eliminate him quietly." The room froze. Every officer, every intelligence chief, even Ibrahim himself stood in silence. These were no longer rumors. It was proof. Proof that enemies, foreign and domestic, had joined forces. Proof that they wanted Ibrahim dead. And most importantly, proof that a street boy had been right all along. Meanwhile, at a private airstrip on the edge of the country, a black jet was preparing for takeoff. Ismail, bruised and bleeding, was dragged up the stairs. Caleb walked behind him, whispering coldly, "You should have just kept quiet." But as the engine started up, a black helicopter appeared in the sky. Thump, thump, thump. It descended like thunder. Soldiers dropped out with rifles aimed. "Drop your weapon!" shouted a voice. "Not hands in the air!" Caleb pulled a pistol and grabbed Ismail as a shield. "Back off or the boy dies," he screamed. The soldiers hesitated. Then bang! A shot rang out from behind. Caleb fell to his knees, blood pouring from his leg. Ismail tumbled forward, free. Behind them, stepping out of a second helicopter, came President Ibrahim Traoré himself. Yes, he had come personally. "You hurt my people," he said calmly, walking forward. "You tried to sell my country. You stole a child from my home." Caleb groaned. "It's not over." But Ibrahim shook his head. "Yes, it is." He turned to his men. "Arrest everyone. Burn that jet if necessary, and bring my son home." That night, the entire nation watched the president on live TV. But this time, he wasn't alone. Ismail stood beside him, wearing a clean white shirt, a fresh bandage over his eyebrow, and the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. The president raised his hand. "My fellow Burkinabe, tonight we were almost destroyed from within. People I trusted tried to take everything from us. But one voice saved this country. One boy. A child of the streets." The room filled with applause and tears. Ismail stood quietly, overwhelmed, unsure what to say. But the president held his shoulder. "From now on," said Ibrahim, "this boy is part of my family. He is proof that the voice of the people matters, no matter how poor, no matter how young." In the weeks that followed, arrests were made, trials began, dirty secrets came to light. But something more powerful also happened. The people awoke. They saw that truth could come from anyone, even a child with a broken radio. President Ibrahim created a new unit called the People's Guard, an intelligence group made up of students, volunteers, and ordinary citizens, trained to report corruption and protect the nation. And at the center of it all was Ismail. He got a home, a school, a future. But more than that, he gained respect. He became a symbol of courage, of truth, of the power of a single voice. And every Sunday, President Ibrahim would sit with the boy at the same old corner, listening to the radio as it buzzed with news and static. "Still works?" Ibrahim once asked. Holding up the dusty old speaker, Ismail smiled. It always works, sir. You just need to listen carefully. They laughed together, and in the distance, beyond the rooftops and trees, Burkina Faso stood a little taller that day, because a street boy spoke up and saved a nation. The legacy of a voice as months passed, Ismail's story spread like wildfire through the savannah. In remote villages, children built improvised radios with discarded parts, inspired by the boy who saved the president. In schools, teachers told his story as a lesson in civic duty and courage. President Ibrahim kept his promise. Ismail not only received formal education, but also specialized training in communications and electronics. His natural talent with radios was cultivated by army, engineers and technicians. The streets that once ignored his voice now recognized him. It's him, they whispered as he passed. The radio boy. The People's Guard grew rapidly with centers in each province. Young and old, students and workers, all could report irregularities through secure channels. Corruption, once hidden in the shadows of power, now faced the light of 1,000 vigilant eyes. The captured conspirators faced public trial. The former Minister of Defense, head bowed before the irrefutable evidence, confessed his involvement with foreign interests who wished to control the country's natural resources. They sold their souls for money, declared Ibrahim during a national address. While a boy with nothing sold only bananas to survive, but kept his integrity intact. Caleb, the ex-captain, faced his own justice. From his cell, he offered to reveal names of collaborators in exchange for clemency. The information led to an international network of influence peddlers who had manipulated governments in various African nations. On a cool October morning, exactly 1 year after the events of that fateful night, President Ibrahim inaugurated the National Institute of Popular Communications. In the central courtyard stood a modest statue, a boy holding a radio above his head, like a beacon of hope. Ismail, now wearing the uniform of the Presidential Academy, cut the inauguration ribbon. His eyes, once frightened and suspicious, now shone with purpose and determination. Power is not in palaces, said Ibrahim at the ceremony. It's in truth, and truth can come from the mouth of anyone, even a child without shoes selling stories on a dusty corner. The crowd applauded as Ismail symbolically turned on an old radio at the podium. From the speakers came not static, but traditional Burkina music. That afternoon, away from cameras and press, Ibrahim and Ismail walked through the same market where they had met. This time, without disguises, without secrets. Has anything changed? Asked Ibrahim, observing the vendors and buyers around them. Ismail smiled. Everything and nothing, sir. People still struggle, still work, still dream. But now, he paused, now they know someone is listening. Ibrahim nodded thoughtfully. That's the real power, isn't it? Not weapons or money, but attentive ears and brave voices. A vendor recognized the two and approached timidly, offering fresh mangoes. Ismail accepted with a smile and shared the fruit with the president. You know, said Ibrahim as he chewed, before that day I thought I needed sophisticated spies, advanced technology, secret agents. Never imagined my salvation would come from a boy with a broken radio. Ismail laughed. The radio was never really broken, sir. People just didn't stop to listen to what it was saying. The sun was beginning to set over Ouagadougou, painting, the sky red and gold. Somewhere in the distance, a radio announced the day's news. This time they were good news. New schools built, fair trade agreements signed, medicines reaching isolated villages. Life hadn't become perfect in Burkina Faso. Problems persisted, challenges arose daily, but something fundamental had changed. A new frequency pulsed through the country, connecting the palace to the streets, the powerful to the humble. And at the center of this transformation, a president who learned to listen, and a boy who was never afraid to speak. When they returned to the palace that night, Ibrahim asked Ismail, "Have you thought about the future? What do you want to be when you grow up?" Ismail contemplated the question for a moment. "I want to be a voice, sir. A voice for those whom nobody listens to. Ibrahim smiled, recognizing in the boy's words the echo of his own oath when he assumed. The presidency. You already are, Ismail, he said softly. You already are.